We are here today with Mark Johnson, author of ta-da! The Renegade Within, which is the first book in the Firewall series, which I'm very curious about book 2 now that I've actually read book 1, because there are so many questions I have. Anyways, moving on. Tell us a smidge about yourself, and then we'll get into the books.
I'm a writer based in Auckland, New Zealand. We're currently in lockdown. Again, bugger.
Oh, wow. The world.
Then, so I've travelled. I've taught high school. Then I decided to get into publishing, and after I decided to go from publishing into actual self-publishing when that sort of fell through. And I write epic fantasy fiction with elements of science, fantasy, and dark fantasy.
Yes. Because all of those genres blend together very well. Generally speaking, that is. Okay, so book 1. You'd better actually tell people about book 1, because I've read it, but other people haven't. And I mean, what would be the point of asking questions if we don't explain what the book is about?
All right. Well, the whole series is about a woman, a disgraced paladin, and I don't use the word paladin, I use another word to describe her. A disgraced paladin who is chosen to defend a god's life. Mm-hmm. And in the process, she becomes a god herself. And that's what the series is about. In the first book is about Set, the Renegade Within. Said paladin is charged with covering up a secret research project when she learns that her superiors are actually hiding a worse secret research project from her and the rest of the organization. And she has to come across a moral dilemma of, do I proceed or do I sort this out? Or do I sacrifice a couple things to do what is right? And it's a story of basically the making of a hero so that we can get into the heroic stuff in the next couple books.
Always fun. Okay, now, in this world of yours, you have how many? Let's see, 23 different god characters, although one of them should be 24 if I've got the numbers correctly.
You got it right. 24. Well done. 24 Polis, and one of them has died fairly recently, as in 150 years ago. Okay. And nobody knows what killed him. Nobody knows what killed this god.
Ooh.
And so what do we do? And society is saying, because do we carry on, or was this just a freak accident, or did something happen? And there's got something to do with occurrences and events that are happening in the main setting of Polis Sumad, and we're in the second book delves deeper into what exactly is going on.
Right. And now these Polis are basically living city types, or they've inhabited the cities, or the people have inhabited them. Whichever way you put it, it's basically a living city, which is super exciting.
Yep, I've got a master's degree in town planning.
Yeah, kind of useful in the publishing industry.
Yeah, tell me about it. What I decided to do is the word polis, P-O-L-I-S, is the Greek word for city-state. Mm-hmm. And I decided to use that. I decided to go with that, and I decided that as an analogy to our society, when the Ice Age ended 12,000 years ago, that's what I decided to use as an analogy for a rampaging disaster that happened 12,000 years ago. But it's not clear what the disaster is that changed everything in this world to become to make the gods have said, you know what, I'm going to become a polis. And it's not clear what the god's physical form was 12,000 years ago. And it's not clear how on earth do you go from, if they took human form, how on earth do you take go from a human form to becoming a city. How does one do that? And it's completely unclear and makes no sense. But it's just taken as fact, and atheism is not possible in this world because there are visible manifestations of the god's power, of things that are possible within the polis that can't exist on the outside. One of which is a swallowing, which is when
One of my favorite bits of the whole book.
one of it is when negative energies of the darkness, the devil figure, gets too rampant and high powered, and then it's just like a targeted earthquake happens, and the area where all the bad energies, bad vibrations, whatever you want to call it, is sucked down into the earth, and those physical properties are, recycled and rehabilitated. And that's one method. And the other method that you haven't really seen yet is that food grows in these farms that grows 3 times faster.
Mm-hmm.
And you haven't seen it yet in the Renegade Within. It wasn't really important, so it didn't go in there.
Right.
But that's what also happens, and every polis is slightly different. And so the polis that our heroes start out in, Polis Armor, that actually has like walking trees.
Oh. Yes. Okay, that's exciting.
Yeah. It's not like Ents. They're not conscious, but these trees just get up and they walk around, and these trees, they're like they grow food on them. And when the characters get to Sumar, they're like, oh wow, the food grows on the ground here and it stays still. And it's just these sorts of things.
That would be quite the transition if you expect your food to move around and all of a sudden it's not moving, not doing anything. Yeah.
Well, there's a whole culture of farmers who are mostly young people who chase trees around.
That's super exciting.
Yeah.
I feel like I would really appreciate that job.
Tree farmer.
Tree wrangler. Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, I like that. Very fun. Okay, so the polis, and then you've got your dark negative energy bit, which turns out is rather important. So you should probably tell us a little bit about that too.
Well, I designed the world around a series of energies. The first energy, the most obvious one, is the energy that the magic users use, and it's just simply vibrations.
Mm-hmm.
And my overarching theory for the entire world building is that everything is energy, and that's true in our world. Matter is energy, unless you get into the, what do they call it, the loop over there in Sweden, the
Hadron Collider.
Hadron Collider. They're looking for those Higgs boson particles.
Yeah.
And all of the mass in planet Earth can probably fit into this cup. That everything else is just energy spaced between the mass, and so. Yeah. And that's what actual mass is. If you understand this correctly, I don't know if I understand it, but I decided to go with that.
It works. I mean, there's a certain amount of physics in there, and simplifying it down, everything is different particles, and then the vibrations between those particles that keep them as solid or liquid or whatever.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. And so I decided that vibrations are the energy of the magic users. Then there's a step up from that, which is a power that you haven't seen yet. And actually you have seen it in the climax. You've seen it, but you just didn't know you saw it. You didn't know that you saw it.
Oh no, now I'm going to be thinking about this. Curses.
And that's for like extreme magic users, who, by the way, are the royals.
So sorry, I'm being spammed.
Oh, all right.
Bad phone.
So the royals use a higher level of energy. Now, coming down a bit, we have just regular electricity. Everyone can use electricity. That's there in the world. Then we have, below that, we have like dark magic users who use chaos energy. And chaos energy is the energy that infests the Cadvers, who are the mindless, reanimated corpses that come about.
Problematic, just a touch.
Yeah, and that which causes some havoc. And one step further down from that is another energy called, which they don't know the name of. They can just call it true chaos, and it's
Hmm.
the energy that comes from the demons that live in in another dimension.
Ah, interesting.
And so basically, there's energy flowing throughout the world, and there's depending on your level of magical adeptness,
Hmm.
you can use whichever particular energy.
Right.
There's also another energy by the name of suppression, and that's a drug.
Oh, that I see. Okay. So that's sort of where our main character, who I believe is that's her.
Reese.
Yes. I can do character identification. I'm good at this. So that's how she gets involved in this whole situation
Yeah.
is with the research project dealing with suppression.
Oh, suppression doesn't really happen. It's just chaos that she's.
Never mind.
Teresa is involved in a. Her job as a paladin is to extinguish chaos energy,
Right.
but she's been given this chance at a research institute, and this research institute is a bit dodgy. But what if it works? What if they can eradicate Cadverism? What if they can get rid of any traces of chaos energy, latent traces from the human body, and no one would ever turn into Cadvers? What if the paladins became more like doctors? And it's such this could change the world. This could change the world. Might have to do some dodgy things to get there because I don't know how we get the research grants signed off on. But if we conquer it, no one's going to care. If it comes out where we've done this, people aren't. People, they will make statues of us
Hmm.
everywhere, all over the world. It doesn't matter if we can get there. And one of the themes is the means do not always justify the ends. If you use dodgy means to get a good result, it's not going to be a good result. It might benefit someone, but something will fall apart somewhere else because you've used dodgy means. It
Right.
doesn't work like that, and you can't stay clean in a mud fight.
Hmm.
So, and that's a theme that she just acknowledges to herself, and she has a road to Damascus moment where she says, what am I doing? What have I done? What am I thinking? And that she's like the only one who realizes she knows a lot more than a lot of others, but a
Hmm.
lot of others know more than her, and she realizes, no, the whole thing is rotten. What do I do?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the other things I noticed in the whole book actually is that your characters are non-standard for what you would expect from a fantasy novel, dark or otherwise. So that's always fun.
It's I started in a different place when I started the book. I wanted the four boys who that she's hunting.
Hmm.
I wanted them to be the main characters, but
Hmm.
then and I had her as an antagonist, and I just as I kept writing, I realized that she was actually the main character, and I was just like, she just took over the book, and it was her journey that I found truly fascinating and appealing, from being the figurehead of the bad guys that they would recognize, that these four boys would recognize, to the actual hero of the series. I thought that was a pretty good transition,
Yeah.
interesting case to make. And plus, she was a mother. She's a
Yeah.
mother, and one of the guiding characteristics of her is that she's like a lot of people I've known who've made mistakes in life, early on in life, and have tried their hardest to compensate for these mistakes
Mm.
by going gung ho on their career or gung ho on their religion or whatever is their particular, I don't know what's the word I'm looking at, their drive. And they need, because of ego problems or whatever, they fixate on this one aspect, and they'll do anything to validate their decisions and themselves, to redeem whatever's lacking.
Right.
And Teresa is absolutely a victim of that, because she's born to be a seeker, but she's so desperate to please her highly ranked father, whose reaction to her her entire life was one of just quiet disappointment.
Ah.
And it's not said in the books, because she never fully internalizes it, but the guy's he just wanted a son. And although as seekers go, she is a standout model role seeker, as
Right.
good as you can get. He's just disappointed in her, and she never gets resolution in that. The guy's always going to be a self-obsessed asshole, and she just stops seeking validation from this person who's seeking a completely different validation for themselves.
Yeah.
And it's and I don't want to go out there and state it as in like herein lies the lesson. It's just it just struck me when I was crafting her as a character. I needed a sympathetic villain or antagonist and secondary antagonist, and she was that. And I realized she's not. She's not. I can't have her have all these characteristics and her remain an antagonistic, which is why I changed her around and put her at the front.
Well, I like her. I think she's very interesting and fun to follow. But then I do have a fondness for antagonists, so even though you've made her the main character, there's probably enough of that remaining that I go, oh, yes, I understand.
Mm.
But
Well,
all of these characters are fun. And the one I really want to ask about, I feel like I can't ask about without spoilers, because we don't learn enough in this book to answer any of the questions I have about him. Darn.
it's Petza.
Yeah.
Petza has. Well, I can tell you this much. Petza was born in the refugee territories as a refugee, and he got involved in a smuggling ring early in life, and he became very much aware of antiques and learned a lot about antiques, both in the ancient Sumardan antiques and Cenephan antiques, and so that's how that's how he got to be where he was, where he'd smuggle antiques back and forth over the border, and that's how he made his money. And then one day there was a discovery made further in within the polis, and these antique merchants, they couldn't figure out what they'd found, and so they came out to him and said, "Hey, we found these antiques. Can you tell us anything that you know about them? Because we're lost. We're stumped." And he disappeared. He disappeared for a number of years.
Oh no.
Yeah. So that much I can tell you.
Oh, stop at the most interesting parts. Okay. Moving on slightly. How many books are in this series thus far?
Okay. There's 6 books in the series, and I keep the books between 50 and 60,000 words because I just like writing tight 3-act stories.
Sure.
And I Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and I just try to avoid any unnecessary further development of the plot, and I'll just jump further into it, and I say, boom, cut the book off and keep going. It takes me ages to write a book because I'm not a fast writer, and plus over the last few years as I've been writing, I've been very active. When I started writing, I had 2 kids under 5. I've been involved in the local New Zealand Labour Party, very involved with that, and of course the publishing company that I was part of for quite a few years. And these things stack up, and I just don't get as much done as I want to. And plus, I was learning to write at the time, and my writing was getting better, and and then I'm like, you know what? Throw it all out and start again. And that's learning what I write, and it's been a bit of a process. But I try to keep these. I've just learned write 3-act structures, and just go boom, 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 hammer them out, go nuts. That's my strategy.
It's a good strategy. If it works, yeah, go for it. Nothing wrong. Okay, so 6 books. So is that total, or is that just what's out at the moment? Because I am really bad at figuring out that sort of a thing.
Well, there's only 2 books out at the moment.
Okay.
The Renegade Within and Shadows and Fog. Shadows
Right.
and Fog stops, doesn't go any further with Therese, and it goes back to the boys and says,
Oh,
"Okay, what did these guys see? What did these guys see?" And they make a sudden reappearance near the end of the Renegade Within,
yeah.
and and they bring her a MacGuffin. I'm like, what? It's like, how did this happen? How did this happen? And this book is all about how that happened.
Okay. I appreciate that because that was like, oh no, things are happening that I don't know about, and of course they're going to be answered further in the series, but you want to know so badly. All right,
The
fun. So it's
third,
sort of a companion timeline.
yes, yes.
Okay, okay.
And the third book brings these 2 sides together
Hmm.
and explains like what's been going on and what the challenge is. Third book is coming out on the 4th of September.
Oh, very exciting. That's like
Yes,
3 weeks away.
I know. I'm getting excited, getting my ducks in a row.
The hardest part of all of this bit.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's always the fun bit is, making sure that everything is edited properly and formatted properly and marketed and
Uh,
all of the afterwards bit.
yeah, thank God for Vellum software is all I have to say.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely one of my most favorite writing tools or
Hmm.
publishing tools. I guess they're
Yeah.
slightly different. It's more publishing than writing, but anyways. Okay, so you're going to be working on this for a while, but do you have any other ideas stewing that we should know about, or are you just going to keep them quiet for a bit?
Oh, once I'm done publishing all 6 books, I'm going to publish them as an omnibus collected edition,
Ooh.
with a new cover, something that's a bit, because the covers at the moment they're good, but they capture one side of the book. So I'm going to go for a bit more contemplative, and publish a different kind of cover just to
Oh,
try and
I'm
bring it all
curious
together.
what that's gonna be like.
Yeah, I'm just thinking,
Huh.
if you're following the SP Soft Publishing blog off cover competition. I like the winning. I can't remember the name of the book that won the cover competition, but I
Yeah,
like the more what's the word, theoretical, contemplative um, cover that says that there's a bit more depth into this.
hmm.
And so I'm going to I'm going to try that. And I call that whole thing together. I call it a novel, and I'm going to work on a sequel to the Firewall series, set in the same world, and it's about what happens. I've set the first book in the outside
Uh-huh.
of refugee territories in the external areas of Polisuma. The second book is going to be set in the middle of Polis Sunat, and so that's where the middle class and the upper classes do come to do their daily business, and they have a lot more interaction with these rather odd immortal royals
Hmm.
at the center, and just explore more of the dynamics and more of the backstory of the culture.
Ooh. Ooh. That'll be fun.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love backstory and all of the, you know, cultural machinations and yeah, yeah. It's great fun. Great fun.
Mhm.
Okay, that's exciting. Wow. Okay. Do you have a general timeline for this, or am I asking
Yeah.
too soon?
Oh, well, book 3 is coming out September 4th.
Right. Right.
4 is coming out November 6th, I believe.
Okay.
No, and I'm currently writing book 5, and I
Gesundheit.
had the book up to about I had the book up to about 60 or 70,000, and the plot just, it would not fit. I've got these beautiful
Oh,
chapters, and they don't match, and I couldn't get them. I just like threw the whole thing out, tears in my eyes. Oh, I'm a terrible writer. I'm a failure, because I just couldn't get it to work. And so I've
no.
started again from scratch, and it's coming along so far. I'm just still
Okay.
trying to write this as quickly as I can, and when that's done, I'm just going to hopefully publish, if I can force the timeline at the start of the year,
Mhm.
and for the 5th book, and get cracking on the 6th book, and get this series cranked out,
Mhm.
and so I can start on the sequel series.
Isn't this the problem with having too many ideas? You just want to keep working on the bits that you have recently come up with, but the bits that you're actually working on aren't there yet.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I've got all these grand ideas, but it's like, oh well, come on, focus, focus. So that's where I am.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's being a writer, that's what happens.
Yep. Yeah, unfortunately.
All right, so let's go and talk about other writery bits. I haven't read any books that I can think of that have living city entities, but do you know of any?
No, I've been looking. I desperately want something like that, and to
Yeah.
read stuff like that. And I thought, I'm just going to write something that a society that looks like ours,
Uh-huh.
but it's got several different things. And I needed to create a dynamic city, and a city that was semi-conscious, was a semi-conscious slumbering god. Seemed like a pretty good start.
Yeah,
And so,
definitely. So, yeah.
the I do have another world in mind, which is much more science fantasy, which
Hmm.
is a bit closer to the world of Hyperion.
Hmm.
If you've read that,
I know of it. I haven't read it yet, but my
oh,
list is long.
it's an inspiration. The books 1 and 2 are a total inspiration.
Okay.
They're amazing. Books 3 and 4 not so much, but still absolutely worth a read.
Okay. Okay. I will move it up the list, which still might take a while. All right. Well, science fantasy is always fun in of its own bit, simply because you get to combine science and magic. So
Yep.
that would be exciting. Of course, I won't ask about that because then we'll derail the whole plan for the current series, and so yeah, problematic. Problematic. All right. Well, if I find a book about other living cities, then I shall let you know.
Thanks.
Far yours is the only one I've seen, and I like it quite a lot. I think it's very interesting, but I'm curious if there's others out there.
Yeah, I didn't get it. I didn't. That wasn't didn't particularly inspire me. The only inspiration I've really had is for these books would be Robert Jordan,
Mm,
and just in terms of the character
yeah,
journeys and development, and
yeah.
that's what inspired me. The cities, I just made that up.
Well, sure, it's fun, but I think the characters fit very well into that world simply because there's that external drive that matches the internal drive.
Yes,
Yeah, okay. Very exciting. So, for your process, if you're throwing out whole bits, do you not plot out your stories?
I plot excessively, and then as I'm writing, I come up with a whole cooler bit, and oh, wouldn't this be awesome if and this was a whole callback to this, and these things happen out of nowhere. I try to plot, and then the gardening gets out of control, and I'm just like, oh, this is so cool, but I have to go back and change, and it's just, and I have to allow that to happen. So I start the whole book with just one thing,
Mhm.
with one sentence, and which is an interesting idea, which is, for example, oh, I don't want to give it away. Okay, book
I mean, I
two,
can
which
read
is
this one if you want.
a a small town, small walled town comes under siege from dark energies, and nobody knows why. That's book 2, and
Okay.
so I start with that, and then once I've got that figured out, then with a couple of details, then I split it into Act 1, 2, and 3.
Hmm.
I pad those out, and I just don't. There's never a day where I start writing from A to B, because I'm constantly going through shaping bullet points on my Word document
Uh-huh.
into longer and longer things, and that way the process can take over, and I go back and I have to rewrite something, and it all just kind of fits together. It's just this huge mess, and that eventually of string, which eventually becomes a tapestry. And I'd love it if it was tidy, and I'd love it if it was quicker, but it's a mess. But that's how I write, and I just have to accept that.
Well, that's very interesting, because you're kind of doing the whole thing at once.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, and I wish there was a way I could do it quicker, but it's just not how my brain works.
Well, it's more like sculpting marble than doing a painting. You know, you've got the single block, and then you chip away at the general shape, and then you get more detailed, and then more detailed, and more detailed, as opposed to sketch, baseline, base layer, background, etc.
Yeah, that's a great way out. I'm Michelangelo.
There you go. That'll be fun. All right. Well, when your books are worth several $1,000,000. Oh, yeah. If only that were the case. But such is the nature of indie publishing. It can be very nice and very good, but millions of dollars, it's going to have to wait a few years.
I think so. Take a while to get there.
Yeah. What is it, 20 years to the overnight success or something like that?
Yeah.
Oh, darn. Oh, well, it's very exciting, all of your plans, and now I really need to read book 2, because I have questions that still need to be answered that I can't ask without spoilers.
Let me know if you have any questions.
I will do. Absolutely.
Oh, that being said, a lot of your questions right now can be answered by my 2 prequels.
Oh. Okay. You have prequels too. I didn't know
not all
that.
by any means. I've got 2 prequels. One is available on Amazon for free.
Mm-hmm.
And Dual Heritage, it speaks of what happened after Therese chased these 4 boys from Palace Armor, and what happened back in Armor, and explains a few things that she didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And the second story is available only at my website, and traces what happened when she was after the prologue, and as she was hunting the boys, and she came to some realizations and understandings about what's going on in her world. I see. Things that are not referenced in the first book for a very good reason. And so I'd recommend, if you can start with the free book Dual Heritage and see what the story is. Okay,
Dual Heritage first, and then on to the next prequel, which I shall find at your website. See, prequels are nice, but they also, they usually ask more questions than are answered. Because you have to get into the rest of the series to have all of the questions answered.
I've got a series.
I know. I'm getting there. One book at a time. All right. Well, I shall be sure to link all of the information to book 1 and the prequels and the sequel in the description box, because that would be mean of me not to.
Thank you very much.
And is there anything else that we should know, excepting the fact that September 4th, because calendars, is the next book?
Yes, September 4th, The Night Princess releases, and I'm looking at a September 6th release, November 6th release of the 4th book, which is named The First and Last. I'm currently working on the cover at the moment.
Ooh, cover is always fun.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this again. I apologize for the technical difficulties. It's been a weird couple of weeks for technology. I blame the weather.
Absolutely fine.
Well, hopefully the lockdown for you ends before too very long. I mean, theoretically, well, you have it far quieter than is out here, so just know that.
Yeah. I'm thinking of you guys. Hang in there.
Crazy times. All right, well, have a fantastic rest of your day, and don't cause too much trouble.
Not too much, I promise.